So as most of you know, there's a lot of hate going around on the Galaxy S25 Ultra. Whether it's the nerfed S Pen with no Bluetooth, the lack of big changes, kind of like what Apple does, or the fact that it still costs $1,300 despite all the similarities to last year's model. It's a tough sell. But call me crazy, I still think the S25 Ultra is one of the best, if not the best Android phones you can get right now. I've been using it for well over a month and I've had an incredible experience. It kind of saddens me too, because I've seen plenty of people online regretting their purchase just because of all the negativity. One that really stood out in particular was from this Reddit post by a user named King of Rain, who said all the people complaining about how bad and disappointing the S25 is really just ruined my experience. And seriously, for someone who doesn't upgrade every year and for whom it is quite a lot of money to spend, this feeling just sucks. And that's real. Not everyone's upgrading yearly, especially now that more OEMs are offering up to 7 years of OS updates. Sure, the S25 lineup feels extremely similar to the S24 series, but let's be real, most people who are coming from a 2 to 3 year old phone, or even older than that, don't really care. Barely anyone is upgrading yearly anymore. And that's just not me guessing. Statista did the work and reported that the average upgrade cycle is around 2.67 years. So chances are, most people who are looking to get the S25 Ultra are coming from a 2 to 3 year old device like the Galaxy S22, iPhone 14, Pixel 7, or maybe even the OnePlus 11. And compared to those, the upgrades on the S25 Ultra are actually pretty solid. You get a 70 to 90% faster processor, a screen that's up to twice as bright, better cameras with an improved ultra-wide lens, a more durable titanium frame, and all those new Galaxy AI features, which I actually found to be pretty useful. Not to mention that it also comes with One UI 7, which is somehow a flex, because as you know, Samsung is taking forever to push out this Android 15 update to their other phones. With that said, I honestly don't think Samsung had in mind to make the S25 Ultra for those with last year's model. After all, the S24 Ultra was arguably the best phone of the year. Instead, the S25 is more for those looking to upgrade from an even older device and just want the best that Samsung has to offer, even if it's similar to last year's model. So if that's you, don't let the general media throw you off when they slap a boring label onto a phone that was already great to begin with. Trust me, there's more to this phone than the headlines suggest. For instance, you probably didn't hear most reviewers talk about the S25 Ultra being smarter than the S24, cause it now learns how you use your phone and automatically creates routines for you based on your usage habits. For instance, whenever I get in the car, I always open Google Maps to type in my destination, and then I switch to Spotify for music. My S25 Ultra was smart enough to pick up on that and automatically created a routine for me in the Modes and Routines app without me needing to tell it to do that. No need to manually set it up like before, it just suggested that I save it. Same thing with my morning routine. It learned what time I wake up based on my past alarms and sleeping habits, and created a routine to play YouTube music to get me up faster. That way, even if I forget to set an alarm the night before, I still won't oversleep. Pretty smart. And one more, it automatically created a routine for me so that whenever I put on my headphones, music starts playing automatically. Now, of course, we Android pros already know how to set up automations on our own, but it's nice that Samsung also does it for you. It makes life easier, especially for the average user who wouldn't even know where to start with those if and then statements. Another feature that I liked and most reviewers didn't talk about is Best Face. It basically lets you save anyone in a group photo who accidentally blinked. So by just going into the Samsung Gallery app, finding the shot where you and your friend blinked, swiping up on the photo, and tapping on Best Face, you can choose other faces where their eyes are open. Just keep in mind that it only works when motion photo is turned on. And of course, the S25s have audio eraser, which most of you have already heard about, but honestly, I really liked it. It basically analyzes the audio in your videos, identifies different sound elements, and lets you tweak them separately. It works pretty well, though if you push it too far, the audio can get a little robotic.
Hey guys, we're out here on a Warriors game, and right now there's a lot of people cheering, music going, everything in the background, but I'm using audio eraser to break down everything, so we'll see how it works afterward. Maybe you won't be able to hear anything.
Also, not sure if you noticed, but the entire S25 lineup has a new default sound profile for almost everything. There's a new notification sound, here's the old one from the S24, and here's the new one. Even the charging sound has changed. Here's the S24, and here's the S25. Same thing with touch sounds. Here's the S24, and then the S25. Personally, on that one, I still prefer the S24s, but my favorite is the unlock and lock sound. The S24 has this, and now the S25 has this. It's a subtle but polished refresh. On top of that, it's also way easier to tell the phone to do things and find hidden gems that you most likely didn't even know existed. Like, if you can't find a certain setting and you don't even know the name of it, you can just describe it to the phone and it'll most likely find it with even more options as well. For example, the other night, my screen felt too bright, even with dark mode on. So I told the AI, my eyes are hurting, how can I make the screen easier to look at? And sure enough, it brought up a bunch of different settings to make the display easier on the eyes. Of course, the first option was one I expected, the eye comfort shield. It just limits the blue light and uses warmer colors. But what I didn't expect is that it would also bring up other useful settings that I didn't even think about. For instance, when I unlock the phone at night, it's super annoying that the screen brightens up to the max just to use face recognition. And sure enough, it brought up this setting to disable it. I didn't even know this toggle existed. It even suggested dimming the wallpaper in dark mode, which was pretty neat. Magnification options as well, and a lot more. Then that got me thinking to even more commands I could ask, like make my phone faster, and it did. It pulled up settings to boost performance, speed up connections, tweak video playback, and more. Most other phones, you can't speak to it that naturally, especially within the settings. On top of that, on certain S25 models, you can also finally check the battery health within the settings. Super useful if you want to see how your battery is holding up in the long run. The only downside is that it doesn't seem to be available on certain US models, so my phone didn't have it. And of course, some other useful things you may have already heard about is that the S25 now uses Gemini to integrate better with Samsung apps. This was already a thing with Google apps, but now Samsung has managed to make Gemini also work with their stock apps. The way I used it was to schedule certain keynote events that I wanted to watch in the future. For instance, Google I/O. I just told Gemini to find out when Google I/O 2025 was, and then add it to my Samsung calendar. And it did it. Or here's another example that's a lot more complex. When I was researching for robot vacuum cleaners because I wanted to buy one, I asked it to find recent YouTube reviews of the best ones and save the top 3 with links to Samsung Notes, and it did it in seconds. It just feels way more natural talking to the AI and getting things done faster. I also like that Circle of Search also got an upgrade where it can identify music playing on your phone, so if you're watching a video and don't know the song, it'll try to find it for you. I also love that you can record phone calls now too and have AI transcribe and summarize them later. Super useful if you need to remember details from a call. Then there's the new Now Brief widget. If you haven't heard of it, it's basically a new home screen widget that gives you important, relevant info at a glance, sort of like a personal assistant. Sounds great, right? But in reality, it's a bit bare bones most of the time. I would usually get weather updates, random news, and Spotify playlists that it would think I would like, and that's pretty much it. There were only a few times where I found it to be helpful, like when it would remind me when someone's birthday is coming up, or when the weather was bad and it would suggest leaving for work earlier. At those times, it actually felt like an actual assistant. Plus, it doesn't fully integrate with some Google apps just yet. For example, if I set an alarm in the Samsung Clock app, it shows up just fine. But if I set an alarm in the Google Clock app, nothing. So it still needs some work, but it's a pretty solid idea. Oh, and they renamed Smart Select to AI Select and optimized it to be a lot smarter now. Like, it can automatically highlight videos or faces more accurately and even give you a few more extra actions so that way you can control what you highlighted even more. So yeah, even though the S25 didn't have any major design changes, the inside got a serious intelligence boost. You can talk to it more naturally, it understands more complex voice commands better, it learns your habits and even creates routines for you, and Gemini is now even way more integrated with Samsung apps. No, these aren't revolutionary changes, but they actually improve the experience in a meaningful way. And let's be honest, One UI was already pretty packed with features, more than any other smartphone software. Even the One UI 7 update alone destroyed any other Android 15 update on competing phones. I covered all that in my review, which you can check out in the cards. So yeah, coming up with new ways to improve an already stacked OS isn't easy, but Samsung keeps thinking outside the box, and I kind of respect that. The only thing that doesn't really make sense to me was removing Bluetooth functionality on the S Pen. So now you can't remotely take pictures from far away or use air gestures to control certain apps. Samsung says they ditched it because less than 1% of users actually use this feature. But let's be real, of course we barely use them. How often do you need to take a group photo or a selfie from far away when no one's around? Maybe once in a blue moon. But when that moment does come, it's actually a lifesaver. And now, it's gone. It's like having the reverse wireless charging feature. Sure, you're not always going to use it, but it's a complete lifesaver for when you actually need it. Now, to be fair, all the non-Bluetooth features are still here, like Air View, screen off memos, pressure sensitivity, etc. But let's be real, Bluetooth was one of the best features about the S Pen, so it's still a huge downgrade. And sure, maybe Samsung had plans for something better with that extra space, but if that were the case, they should have just waited until they actually had that new feature ready. Right now, it just feels like they removed something useful for no good reason. I get why people are mad on that. On top of that, everything else on the Galaxy S25 Ultra is pretty much the same as before, with a few new changes here and there. The build of the S25 Ultra is almost identical to last year's with a few tweaks. It's still titanium, still has a rectangular shape, and same 5-camera island. And no, those camera rings didn't come off while I was using the phone, so don't worry about that. It just has more rounded corners and flatter sides now. I do appreciate the more rounded corners because the ones on the S24 Ultra were just too sharp and jabbing on the palm. The flat sides are also really nice to look at, sure, but when you actually start to hold the phone, you realize that those rounded off sides on the S24 Ultra were a lot more comfortable. So next time, I really hope they just round off both the sides and the corners too. But still, keep that flat display, of course. No curved screens, please. If I had to pick up a phone that absolutely nailed the comfort, I would give it to the OnePlus 13. Even when holding it in weird positions like a game console, it still feels great. That said, the S25 Ultra still looks incredible. It's premium, professional, and just screams high-end. But Samsung, next time, please give us better color choices. Not gonna lie, this year's color lineup was pretty boring. And even with the Galaxy S25 Ultra's titanium build, I still couldn't bring myself to trust it without a case. And time again, I bounced between cases. But still, my go-to has always been TORRAS, the sponsor of this video, because not only are they extremely functional, but they also have the perfect balance between slimness and durability. Especially their new O-Stand 360-degree spin case for the Galaxy S25 series. It gives me the ultimate confidence when carrying this gigantic phone in public. It has raised edges, visible airbags inside, and this ski gear homologate material that feels great to the touch. So you can drop this case as many times as you want, and it'll still provide you with 360-degree protection. But my favorite part is its 360-degree O-stand. The hinge clicks satisfyingly into place, letting me stand the phone at basically any angle. Perfect for jotting notes down with the S Pen or watching videos hands-free. And fun fact, TORRAS is actually the one that invented the O-stand design, so all those copycats, yeah, they got it from here. It even supports MagSafe, so you can snap on a battery pack or a wireless charger, no problem. TORRAS even makes a 15-watt wireless charger with an O-stand built in, which is pretty genius. Oh, and for extra protection, I also threw on their Glass Go X screen protector. Edge-to-edge coverage, shatterproof up to 12 feet, and ridiculously easy to install with their one-step pull installation toolkit. No bubbles, no stress. So if you're thinking about getting any of the Galaxy S25 series and want top-tier protection, check out TORRAS products through the top link in the description. Now as for the display, what can I say? I loved it. It's got almost every spec you'd want in a screen, including that anti-reflective coating that makes it easier to use in direct sunlight. But what really caught my eye were those smaller bezels. I mean, that new 92.5% screen to body ratio really makes the display look insanely good. Something that not many phones can pull off too, by the way. Sure, the screen size also got a tiny bump from 6.8 to 6.9 inches, but the real star of the show are those thinner bezels. The only thing I wish Samsung had improved was the brightness. You've got phones out there like the OnePlus 13 and Oppo Find X8 hitting 4500 nits peak brightness, literally twice as bright as the S25's 2600 nits. And they also cost way less. Why? Definitely something I would have liked to see Samsung step up. As for the cameras, I wasn't expecting anything huge, considering that the cameras on the back and front are pretty much the same as last year's. I mean, aside from that new ultra-wide lens that got bumped up from 10 megapixels to 50. Daylight shots are packed with detail, great dynamic range, and natural colors. Occasionally, I noticed some overexposure, but nothing that ruined the shot. Night mode though, now that was a lot more impressive. With any shots that I took in the dark, I didn't really notice any noise, and there was a lot less motion blur. And I believe that has a lot to do with their new AI features that are working behind the scenes. Even with videos, I was pleased with the quality. Great detail, amazing stabilization and exposure. Plus, I love that you can shoot in log now. I know the majority of users aren't going to use this. As a matter of fact, I bet you less than 1% of users will, but I do appreciate it. And of course, Samsung's AI tools are still here, like sketch to image, generative edit, object eraser, and the new ones like audio eraser and best face. They're all great to have. The best part is that some of these are even on device now instead of in the cloud. So using something like generative edit is a lot faster now and even more accurate. And none of this would have been possible without the new Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset. And what can I say? This thing is blazing fast. Easily the fastest phone I've ever used, right up there with other devices that have it like the Oppo Find X8, OnePlus 13, and the Find N5, which by the way, I have a review coming soon, so make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss out on that. Any phone with this chip, it just flies through the OS, apps open ridiculously fast, gaming is phenomenally smooth, and animations are butter. Now when it comes to battery life, I'm probably not the best guy to ask, or maybe I am, considering how insanely hard I push my phones. I'm talking about playing Call of Duty for 1 hour every day, with sometimes it being up to 3 hours too. Usually around an hour of scrolling through TikTok as well, split screening between 2 apps for a good chunk of the day, and having the Quad HD Plus resolution set, having my OnePlus Watch always connected, always on display enabled, and light mode scheduled to sunset and sunrise times, along with a bunch of other apps constantly running in the background. So yeah, my usage is a bit heavier than others, but on average, I got around 6 hours of screen on time. Here's my battery usage settings. You can see it for yourself. It's consistently around 6 hours. Some days were higher, but that was mostly because I forgot to charge it overnight and had to top it up in the afternoon. So yeah, it's not the worst screen time I've had, but it's also not the best. That's why I would have loved to see a bigger battery capacity. 6,000 milliamp hours like on the OnePlus 13 would have been perfect. As for charging, 45 watts is totally fine for me. Sure, it would have been cool to have 80 or even 100 like on some Chinese phones, but I promise I still sleep just fine at night knowing my phone can fully charge in around an hour or even hit at least 60 to 70% in 30 minutes. Now, if I'm charging wirelessly, it's overnight anyway too, so I'm not really dissatisfied with the slower wireless charging speeds. What would have been nice though is built-in MagSafe style magnets, especially since the phone is Key 2 ready. But honestly, I can just use a MagSafe compatible case like the one that TORRAS has, so it's not a big deal. Oh, and of course, reverse wireless charging, that's a cool feature to have, but I have yet to use it. At the end of the day, the Galaxy S25 Ultra is an incredible phone, smarter and more capable than a lot of others. But is it worth $1,300? Absolutely not. Again, I don't think this phone is really meant to push anyone from dropping their current top-of-the-line flagship from last year and upgrading to this one. I don't even think that happens nowadays with any phone because I feel like the whole smartphone industry as a whole has reached its peak. But we can't deny that it's still a great phone and a perfect option for anyone coming from a 2 to 3 year old device or even older than that. That's just my take though. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Drop a thumbs up if you enjoyed this review, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Kapow!